What is good with you guys? It is your boy One, and we are back in this thing with another reaction video. Now, at this point, you have already heard about the ongoing situation between this man here himself, Pooh Shiesty. Allegedly, this man kidnapped Gucci Mane and tried to force his way out of a contract. This man has got to be one of the craziest rappers that we have come across in the last 5 to 6 years, bruh. Like, he literally just got out of jail in November of last year. Talk about squandering a second chance, bro. So today we're going to be reacting to my man Blackie Speaks. The Pooh Shiesty story is worse than you think. All right, man, let's see what my boy Blackie got to say. Be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you want to see more content. Let's get it.
Now, the Pooh Shiesty story is definitely worse than people think. A lot of people are talking about it right now, but a lot of the details are getting mixed up. So let me just break it down and give you the full story. So recently, rapper Pooh Shiesty was arrested in connection to a robbery and kidnapping case involving rapper Gucci Mane. And the story goes like this. On January 10, 2026, around 1 p.m., Gucci Mane flew into Dallas with members of his camp and 2 security guards for what was supposed to be a business meeting with rapper Pooh Shiesty. Pooh Shiesty had been signed to Gucci Mane's 1017 label since 2021, but at this point, he wasn't happy with the terms of his deal. So he asked Gucci to come out to Dallas with the intention of talking things through and potentially getting out of his contract. About 45 minutes later, around 1:45 p.m., they arrived at the studio, which was located inside an office building, only to realize it was still closed. So while they waited, the group stepped out, went to a nearby liquor store, grabbed some drinks and red cups, you know, those red cups that rappers use to drink this thing called lean, and then came back to the building. By around 3:15 p.m., the studio finally opened. Gucci and his security went inside, just waiting for things to get started. Around this time, Pooh Shiesty's father, Lontrell William Sir, is seen outside the building before entering a few minutes later, and this is where things start to shift. Around 3:43 p.m., 7 more men show up. However, they don't come through the main entrance. They slip in through a side door and make their way into the studio. One of them leaves briefly, then comes back a minute later, now carrying a bag over his shoulder.
Yo, you know what's crazy about this? Them getting to the studio early and then going to the liquor store, that already lets me know that Gucci Mane was not on none of that type of stuff. It looked like he got completely caught off guard by this, bro. And it looks like to me, Pooh Shiesty and Big 30 of them was already planning to do this. So, you know, that's premeditation. We all know how anything premeditated plays out in court. But, you know, you still got to have evidence. So, I don't know, man. Supposedly, it was caught on video, but I've only seen pictures.
At this point, what was supposed to be a normal business meeting is starting to look like something else entirely. Inside the studio, Gucci Mane and his people, including his security, are just kind of sitting there watching a football game, completely unaware of what might be unfolding around them. Meanwhile, Pooh Shiesty steps out and gets on a phone call. From what could be overheard, it sounded like he was speaking to his probation officer, who was telling him he wasn't supposed to be out and needed to return immediately. Pooh Shiesty then agreed, but instead of leaving right away, he stayed. At one point, Gucci even tells him, they could just reschedule the meeting if the timing wasn't right, but Pooh Shiesty insists on continuing the conversation about the contract.
Yo, that's actually, man, look, I told y'all, this man Pooh Shiesty is actually insane in the head, bro. This man decided to do a robbery. He probably didn't even think this was going to turn into a kidnapping because, I mean, Gucci is supposed to be like a street nigga. So he obviously came at the situation like this because he was signed to a gangster rapper. Had Pooh Shiesty not been signed to Gucci, like if he was just signed to some white guy, I don't think he would have came at it this same way. He probably didn't anticipate on none of this getting out. Or, definitely he didn't anticipate on none of this going to court. But, bruh, the man messed up for real because, yeah, let's just see if he gonna talk about it.
So the two of them move into another recording room nearby to talk privately about the contract. And that's when things change. What was supposed to be a business conversation escalates fast. Inside that room, Pooh Shiesty pulls out paperwork and tells Gucci Mane, sign it, trying to force his way out of the contract. Gucci Mane refuses. And that's when something else happens. Pooh Shiesty gets visibly frustrated and the conversation turns into an argument. Then he tells rapper Big 30, which is his friend, to go grab a bag. Big 30 leaves the room.
Man, bro, this is crazy. I could just I'm picturing this playing out in my head, how I think it would look, and it just looks crazy as hell. Pooh Shiesty sitting there pulling out that contract and you know, trying to get Gucci to sign it, trying to force him to sign it. Gucci already probably caught off guard by this, and then this man Pooh Shiesty tell this man Big 30 to go get his bag. I guess his bag had the gun in it. And you know, look, I got a few things to say about Big 30 too, but we're gonna progress in the video before I decide to give my opinion on that.
And then comes back moments later with that bag. And now the situation takes a serious turn. Pooh Shiesty reaches into that bag that Big 30 brought him, pulls out an AK style pistol, and points it directly at Gucci Mane, demanding that he signs the paperwork.
Boy,
at that point, Gucci complies. I mean, he's inside a studio surrounded by a bunch of dudes, outnumbered, with no real way out of the situation. And while he's signing, mind you, the gun is still pointed at him, and he's not allowed to leave. One of the guys there pulls out a phone and starts recording, making him say out loud that he's releasing Shiesty from the deal. But none of that actually matters legally, obviously, because anything signed under pressure like that doesn't hold up in court, but that's beside the point. Once the paperwork is signed, it doesn't stop there. Shiesty and the others go on to rob Gucci Mane, taking his wedding ring, his watch, his earrings, and cash right there inside the studio. They even force him to write out the date on the paperwork. At the same time, in another room, things are getting just as serious. The group turns their attention to Gucci Mane's security team, guns.
Okay, look, dang, it's a lot happening right now, right? Before we even move on to what's going on outside of the room, it's just amazing to me that these hooligans really thought this was like a 80s or a 90s movie, bro. Like, they actually thought that they was going to get away with this and this was going to play out how they wanted it to. Forcing your way out of a contract. You got to go through lawyers and all type of stuff before any of that gets solidified, right? I guess they just thought if we force him to sign it and then we get proof that he's signing it, they thought it was just over with like that. Man, look, these dudes is crazy as hell. They obviously didn't have nobody around them to school them on how this shit really go. You would think Shiesty dad hearing about this. I'm assuming that he did hear about this prior to it happening, right? It's no way he didn't. But even if he did, I'm not saying he'll be able to sit there and talk Shiesty out of doing this. But it's just crazy he didn't let his son know, hey, you know, even if you do force him to sign it, it still ain't really just gonna play out that way. Like, that is crazy, bro.
They're drawn and they're outnumbered. They're robbed on the spot. Wallets, chains, and other valuables taken from them. One of the security guards is put in a dangerous situation where he was nearly shot during the situation. At one point, he's even grabbed from behind, choked to the point where he's close to losing consciousness while being robbed at gunpoint. Another guard has his Rolex taken, along with a Louis V bag that contained multiple high-end watches, which included AirPods and his wallet. What they didn't, however, know is that some of those stole. They're outnumbered. They're robbed on the spot. Wallets, chains, and other valuables taken from them. One of the security guards is put in a dangerous situation where he was nearly shot during the situation. At one point, he's even grabbed from behind, choked to the point where he's close to losing consciousness while being robbed at gunpoint.
Okay, so Blackie, I think Blackie is getting that part messed up. The person that got put in a chokehold actually was not a part of his security team. It was the cameraman, right? So not only is Pooh Shiesty and Big 30 inside of that room terrorizing this man Gucci, right? Their homeboys are also outside of the room terrorizing everybody else that came with Gucci. So yeah, it wasn't another part of the security team. I think Gucci only had one off-duty police officer with him, which I'm sure he's about to bring up, and that's actually one of the main things that's really about to solidify this man Pooh Shiesty going back to jail, because he's robbing Gucci not knowing that the man has hired an off-duty police officer. So he's just doing crime right in front of the police and he not even realizing it. This man had on an ankle monitor doing this, which is just crazy.
Another guard has his Rolex taken, along with a Louis V bag that contained multiple high-end watches, which included AirPods and his wallet. What they didn't, however, know is that some of those stolen items had Apple AirTags attached to them. And at that point, everyone inside is surrounded, with guns pointed at him and no real way out. The goons then block the door and prevent everyone from leaving, holding them still at gunpoint. Eventually, Gucci Mane is pushed back onto the couch, and Shiesty placed the barrel of a gun to the back of one of Gucci's people and told them it's time to leave. And just like that, it's over. At around 4:48 p.m., everyone leaves the building through the east entrance. Not long after that, the situation is reported to the police. And once investigators start looking into it, things begin to line up very quickly. Surveillance footage from nearby buildings capture multiple vehicles leaving the area shortly after the robbery. A white Buick Enclave, a black Dodge Charger Hellcat, it's always a Hellcat, and a black Dodge Ram with a distinct roll bar in the back, all seen heading northbound. From there, law enforcement started digging deeper. Using license plate reader data, they're able to identify one of the key vehicles, the Hellcat, and that's when it gets more specific. The car is traced back to someone connected to the group, registered to the father of one of the individuals involved. More importantly, the same Charger had already been picked up earlier that day in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Around 2:18 p.m., it was captured on camera driving close behind a black Dodge Ram, the same type of truck later seen near the studio. And that Dodge Ram had a very specific detail, which was a roll bar that I mentioned earlier attached to the back of it, matching exactly what was seen in the surveillance footage after the robbery. At this point, it's no longer just a random incident. Investigators are now able to connect the vehicles, the timing, and the people involved, and a big part of that comes from witness statements. Along with the evidence, they start putting everything together. But here's the crazy part. As far as Pooh Shiesty, back in 2022, he was sentenced to 63 months in prison for a firearms conspiracy case. And by late 2025, he had been approved for home detention, which came with very strict conditions. He wasn't allowed to possess any weapons. He wasn't allowed to, be around any gang members, right? Like anybody who's carrying guns and doing all this crazy stuff. He was also required to wear an electronic monitoring device, essentially tracking his location at all times, right? So they were able to verify very easily and placed him right at the location of the incident on January 10, 2026. And
all right, so look, obviously they're going to be able to place him at the crime scene because the man had on a freaking ankle monitor, which they were tracking, which is why they called him and told him, hey, you're out. You're not supposed to be wherever you're at. You need to get back to the house. This man agreed, but then he decided to rob Gucci before he went to the house. So he was going to be placed at the scene of the crime anyways, bruh. And also I'm seeing people get at Gucci online. They're now calling Gucci Mane a rat because all of this got reported to the police. But like I said, man, the guy that got choked was his cameraman. Somebody that looked like they have never lived this type of life to where they're dealing with gangsters. The cameraman was basically a civilian. I don't know what got said in the room or how it got to the point where they were choking this man out, but obviously he was going to report it to the police, right? Especially if somebody choked this man until he was almost unconscious. Second of all, this man Gucci had an off-duty police officer with him, which they did not know about, right? They probably just thinking he got regular security. So obviously this was going to get reported to the police regardless, bruh. It was a freaking officer involved, right? So if Gucci did tell the police something, if he did mention Pooh Shiesty or just anybody that he thought was involved in this to the police, I feel like that was a mistake because one, there were freaking witnesses in the room, right? Everybody lived. Nobody got shot or killed. So it's like, they could have did all the talking to the police. And, that off-duty police officer was obviously going to report it and tell everything that happened. So Gucci honestly didn't even have to say anything to the police. He could have just let it play out, which, I feel like that's what he should have did, assuming that he, cooperated or whatever.
Investigators also pulled cell phone records and location data tied to several of the people involved, along with tracking data from the vehicles, and what they found was very important. A group of individuals connected to the situation had actually traveled together from Memphis, Tennessee to Dallas, Texas, days before everything happened. So at least 2 people in the group had ankle monitors. The investigators of this case kept on lining things up, and they were able to confirm that some of the people involved left Dallas almost immediately, the very next day, January 11, several of them taking a Greyhound bus from Dallas back to Memphis, Tennessee. And this isn't just a guess, like they contacted Greyhound, confirmed the trip. At the same time, others connected to the situation left separately, driving back from Dallas to Memphis just a couple days later. So now you have multiple people all tied to the same incident.
Man, hold on, bro. So what we just heard was actually crazy. Some of them driving back, right? Some of them taking the Greyhound back. They were doing this to kind of throw the police off, I guess. It would look more suspicious if their phones tracked all of them traveling back to Memphis at the same time together. Obviously, that would look more suspicious. But I mean, y'all are kind of doing the same thing here. They thought taking a Greyhound back was going to kind of mask or, I don't know what they were attempting to do by taking a Greyhound. That's not going to throw them off your track, bro, especially if you got a phone with you. Man, dude, these criminals be freaking stupid, bro. I'm telling you, they thought taking a Greyhound was going to somehow throw the police off their trail. If anything, you're making it more freaking obvious. I mean, it's actually kind of laughable how careless they were while attempting to do this. Dude, taking a Greyhound back, thinking that's going to throw them off your trail, it's like they on some Looney Tunes shit, bro. Like, come on, man. This is real life, and y'all boys did not think out a better way to do this.
Leaving the city in different
Crashing
ways,
out.
but all heading back to the same place. And that movement ends up matching everything investigators
Crashing
had been
out.
seeing through surveillance and phone records. And investigators were also able to trace where the group was staying during all of this. After going through cell phone data and reports tied to the vehicles, they determined that several of the individuals involved were staying at a Comfort Inn Dallas from January 10 to January 11. Hotel records confirmed that multiple rooms were booked under one of their names. And when investigators review the surveillance footage from inside the hotel, it gets even more clear. They're able to spot several of the same individuals inside the building, wearing clothes that matches what was seen during the robbery earlier that day. And then here's the physical evidence, right? Investigators recover fingerprints from items left behind at the scene, including red plastic cups inside the studio, those lean cups. And then those prints are run through a national fingerprint database, and they got matches. 2 of the individuals involved are directly identified through those prints, linking them back to the same exact location where everything happened. And then here's what happened afterwards. Surveillance footage from the building shows one of the individuals leaving the scene carrying what appears to be the same Louis V bag that had just been reported stolen, but it doesn't stop there. Just a few days later, that same person posts a video on Instagram, dumb, right, wearing a Rolex that looks identical to one of the watches taken during the robbery. And
hold on, man. That is a lot to unfold. Not only is this guy getting online flashing the jury that they just stole from these folks, right? So you already giving the police evidence. Like y'all just willingly give them evidence doing this, thinking it makes you look more gangster, when in reality you just look stupid, bro. Like, you're giving them evidence, right? Spoon feeding it to them. These guys tried to take a freaking bus back, but at the same time stayed in the same freaking hotel. 2 of y'all took a bus back, and a couple of y'all drove back. Y'all decided to do that Looney Tunes ass shit, but then all of y'all stayed at the same hotel and then proceeded to commit this crime in the same clothes that y'all was seen on in the surveillance at the hotel. Bro, you cannot be more stupid in this situation. Like, I'm sitting here thinking of ways that they could be more stupid. I can't even come up with one. This is insane, bro.
this wasn't just any watch, it was the victim's watch. And the victim had already provided investigators with photos, receipts, and even the serial number. So when that video surfaces, it only adds to the evidence, and the police end up using this against them. One of them is also seen wearing a chain with 1017 on it, which was another item taken during the robbery. And honestly, the level of carelessness in this entire situation is hard to just like ignore. It's crazy. They probably didn't even care, right? I'm not here to promote any criminal activities, but But
see, look, this is what I'm saying though, y'all. Obviously, they went about this in a very careless way, right? But a part of me is thinking he didn't care to move smarter because he thought Gucci Mane, he thought Gucci Mane was a street nigga still, right? Pooh Shiesty thought Gucci Mane was still on that street shit. I don't think Pooh ever imagined this getting out and going to court. And even if it did get out, he probably just was thinking it was going to circulate in the streets and not actually go to federal court. But he didn't anticipate on this man having an off-duty police officer. So this man Pooh probably thought it was going to stay on some street shit. And it's advancing way beyond that. So that's just something he didn't anticipate on happening. And if he go back to jail for a long time, his career is over with. He can kiss that goodbye. His run is over with. And his second chance is over with.
Like, if you're going to move like this, putting everything out on social media right after is stupid. Now, stepping back from everything that happened, the reason this situation even started in the first place was over a contract. Pooh Shiesty wanted to sit down with Gucci Mane and talk about getting out of his deal. And to be fair, that part isn't unusual. A lot of artists sign deals early on and they later realize that they're not happy with the terms. That's pretty common, right? But what makes this different is how it was handled. Because instead of going through the proper channels, authorities say it escalated into robbery, and kidnapping. And here's the thing, whether people want to admit it or not, Gucci Mane has actually helped Pooh Shiesty a lot. Now sure, he already had momentum before signing with him, but at the same time, Gucci Mane has been one of those guys who's consistently given opportunities to street rappers and helped take them to another level. Now the issue is when you mix business with emotion and a street mentality, this is usually what it turns into. And it really just shows you where that kind of mindset leads. There's no real structure, no long-term thinking. And once that starts bleeding into business situations, things get out of control fast. And
he right about that, man. Look, these street dudes got very low emotional intelligence, right? I see a lot of them do crazy, idiotic things over small situations, right? Because for some reason, they're unable to control their emotions. As grown men, they're unable to do this. And this is the thing that makes a street dude super dangerous. It's not even the fact that he's a gangster and a civilian is a civilian, right? Just comparing the two in this, in this scenario. What makes the gangster more scary than the civilian, because they can have the same gun skills, but what makes the gangster worse, he has a low emotional intelligence, probably less to lose, right? So in every situation, he's going to be more dangerous because he's willing to take it further than it really has to go, because he has low emotional intelligence. He's able to foresee the future. He's only thinking about right then and there, right? They never think about the consequences of what could happen if they do get caught doing dumb stuff like this. They just do it. And then Big 30, you got him just being a complete follower in the background. Like, bro, this man Pooh Shiesty was in jail for like 5 years. You wasn't on none of that. You wasn't really getting in too many beefs. You had the little thing with Moneybag, but come on, man. We all know that wasn't finna go nowhere. As far as I know, you was chilling, putting out music, and just, doing your thing. And then you just let Pooh Shiesty get out of jail and put you in this situation to take you away from your family and your kids. You got to be smarter than that. We can have our family members' backs, friends' backs, your homeboys, whatever. You can have their back. But at the same time, you cannot just be a yes man, a follower, and just let them get you in the BS like this, bruh. Big 30, you come on, man. Blocking the door. You didn't anticipate that on turning into a kidnapping charge, did you? Like, y'all have got to be smarter than this, man. And I'm disappointed in that man, because he was chilling, doing his thing. You wasn't on this type of energy, bro. Why you wait till Pooh Shiesty to get out of jail to be on this type of energy? Like, it's just crazy.
I don't really understand trying to force someone to sign a contract at gunpoint. Like, there's no real logic behind it. But then again, this wasn't about logic. And now look at the situation. Authorities are saying that
this man
if
thought he was in the 90s
Pooh Shiesty,
hood
everyone
movie.
involved could be facing up to life in prison. And this happened in Texas. And if you know anything about Texas, you know that they don't play. They hand out football numbers like candy and Halloween. We've already seen this with cases like the TK case, where he wasn't even the shooter in one of those cases and still ended up with 55 years in prison. And in another case where he was actually the shooter, he got 80 years in prison. That same system is what this situation is now falling under. And honestly, this should be a lesson, not just for Gucci Mane, not just for artists in hip hop, but for everybody. You can't do business with people who move and think like this. Because once things get emotional, once that mindset takes over, the YN mindset, it can turn into something way bigger than it ever needed to be. Gucci Mane could have easily gotten killed in that situation. He's very lucky he even made it out of there, honestly. Because we all know how fast things can change when you got a group of YNs with guns acting off emotion. We've seen what kind of damage they can do.
Low emotional
if you made it this far,
intelligence.
drop a like on this video, and of course subscribe.
Like he just said, these guys got guns, a lot of ammunition, low emotional intelligence, so they're willing to crash out at any moment. And we just seen this happen with Pooh Shiesty. I mean, him getting out of jail in November of last year, putting out FDO, that song did really good. Go look at the numbers on YouTube. Like, bro was on his way to like a very successful career, and he kind of just threw it all away in a super emotional state, and he wasn't really just thinking about the consequences of what he was actually doing, thinking this is a freaking 90s movie and you can just muscle your way out of a contract. Bro, it is 2026. You should know that's not how that works. A lot of following yes man and going on in this situation, and I don't know if his dad tried to talk him out of doing this, but obviously he didn't have too much influence on him because he still did it, right? So crazy situation. I'm predicting that if he actually gets convicted, because we haven't seen any videos of him actually holding a gun or putting a gun in anybody's face. And in court, it's not about what you think happened, it's about what you can prove. Sometimes it's not actually even about what really happened. You got to have proof. Even if it did happen, you got to be able to prove that somebody didn't do or did something. So he got money for a real good lawyer. This could play out either way. They saying Gucci cooperated with the police, so I don't know. We're probably going to hear more about that too. I've been hearing that some stuff is about to come out on Pooh Shiesty's dad as well. So it's just a lot unfolding in this situation, man. It's another theory that we can discuss, because they were saying that Gucci Mane did Big Scar wrong, and with him accidentally overdosing, and Gucci Mane, the first thing he thinking about is them chains he gave Big Scar, asking for the chains back as soon as this man died, and not even just worried about him as a person or trying to help with the funeral. I think that's why things went left with Big Scar's family and Gucci. And as we all know, that is Pooh Shiesty's blood cousin. I heard that they was close, so Pooh Shiesty could have been in jail, and when you in jail, you got nothing to do but think all day, right? So he probably was just thinking about that situation. It probably was pissing him off. He probably had already planned to do this before he even got out of jail. He probably just waited, you know what I'm saying? And this took place back in like January, I think. So the public is just now hearing about this, but this been took place. I heard the police been had this information. They just waited and built up more evidence, I guess, to bring it to the light. So yeah, man, it's a lot to unfold in this situation. I'm sure more things are going to come out soon, but let me know you guys' reaction to this. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you think this man Pooh Shiesty was justified in doing this? Is the contract Gucci put him in really that bad to where he had to go crash out to get out of it? Or do y'all think that he was stupid for doing this and he should have just tried to negotiate his way out of his contract, or put up some money or something? Let me know how you feel in the comments. But it's been your boy One. I'ma holla at y'all. Peace.